Hey y'all, my name is Mare. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking through all the books that I read in April. So if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe down below for more book-related content. I'm constantly uploading videos such as this one, reading vlogs, TBR games, and more. So starting off this video, we gotta talk about some statistics. The number of books that I read last month, drumroll please, 17. I read 5,538 pages and I listened to 37.5 hours worth of audiobooks, and my average rating was a 3.82. Breaking it down by genre, I read 3 contemporary, 10 fantasy, 1 historical, 1 mystery, and 2 romance. And I read 1 adult, 1 middle grade, 4 new adult, and 11 YA. So let's just jump into the actual books that I read. If I did have a video that I read the book in, I will have that linked in the description, as well as what book it actually was, because for the books that I read for videos, I'm still going to be talking about them, but I'm not going to be going as in depth that I did in the particular reading vlog that it's from. So the first book that I read was for a video, and I read Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand, and this was for my Reading Like an Enneagram 4 video. Some Kind of Happiness is a middle grade about a young girl named Finley whose parents are going through a divorce, so she goes to live with her grandparents that she's never met. And she also has this magical made-up forest that she writes about called the Everwood. So it has sort of a magical realism touch to it, but it's very much about mental health and Finley dealing with her parents' divorce and just her own things. And I really enjoyed the discussion of mental health because I don't typically pick up a lot of middle grade, but I thought it was very refreshing to see a middle grade talk about those topics, because I feel like a younger audience could read that book and really feel that they identify with that. So I really did enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars. I will say that it's not super memorable for me. I think that it was good in the moment and I enjoyed my time with it, but as I get further away from the book, I don't really recall a lot of particular scenes and moments. So it's not an all-time favorite, but I definitely think it is a really great middle grade recommendation if you're looking for something a bit more serious that deals with mental health. The second book that I read for that video was We Are Okay by Nina LaCour, and I actually gave this book 5 stars. I loved it. So We're Okay follows a girl named Marin who undergoes an experience before she goes to college that causes her a lot of grief. And so while she's at college, she feels very lonely and she doesn't know how to deal with this grief. And over her winter vacation, her friend Mabel comes and visits her, but it's very different because they used to be very close, but now they aren't so much because of things that have happened in the past. So it's about them reconnecting as well as Marin dealing with her grief. And I really enjoyed this. Like I said, I gave it 5 stars. It made me cry, and I have vlog clips of me sobbing my eyes out during that video, so I definitely would recommend watching it if you want to see me just sob over it. But I thought the exploration of grief was just beautifully handled. I love books that deal with more serious topics, and this one definitely did that, and I just felt so much for Marin and so much for all these characters, and I just wanted to reach out and hug them. They all felt so tangible to me, which is why it just packed such an emotional punch. The next book that I want to talk about is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, and I read this for the Grishaverse read-along that I was hosting with a couple of my friends on BookTube. And for those who have been watching some of my recent videos, you might know that I'm not the biggest fan of the Grishaverse. It is simply not for me, and that's okay. I totally respect if you love the Grishaverse, but I just could never connect to any of the characters. I didn't find the plot very engaging, and so I was already very hesitant to pick up King of Scars because I did not have a good experience reading Crooked Kingdom. I am very much a plot-based reader, and I like characters, and I do need a good, well-rounded character, but the thing is, I can't have just characters in my book, and I feel like King of Scars and Crooked Kingdom in particular do a great job of focusing on characters, but they're not characters that I care about or have attachment to, and so it just really was not a pleasant experience for me because I needed some sort of plot to hold on to. And I feel like King of Scars did have a somewhat enticing plot at some points, but I just feel like it was a bit all over the place, and I ended up giving this one a 2.5 star rating. Now, I don't want to go too much into what King of Scars is about, but it does follow Nikolai, who is one of the characters from the Shadow and Bone trilogy. However, I just want to preface this and say, if you have not read the Shadow and Bone trilogy or Six of Crows, you cannot go into King of Scars, so that's why I'm kind of avoiding giving you a synopsis because it would spoil 2 entire book series. So I would just say this book series, just not for me. I ended up not picking up Rule of Wolves because there was one plot line in particular that I cared about in King of Scars that I don't even want to go into it, okay? Because I have feelings about a very specific character and I don't like how that character's arc was handled. It was just not the vibe, okay? So King of Scars, 2.5 star. If you like the Grishaverse books, I think that you will still enjoy it, but it is very, very different from the Six of Crows duology and the Shadow and Bone. I think that the writing is very similar in tone to the Six of Crows duology, but the plot is just weird. The next book that I want to chat about, I cannot believe that I read in the month of April. I don't know why it feels like I read this forever ago, but I mean, it does make sense because it was actually a reread, and that is City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare. I sort of did a half audiobook, half reading the book physically experience, and I loved the audiobook for City of Lost Souls. So if you're looking to reread the series, I definitely recommend listening to them if you can, because I think that the audiobook narrator just did a wonderful job of giving a convincing performance. City of Lost Souls was always my favorite Mortal Instruments book when I was growing up reading the series. I was like, this one is my favorite. And I think it's just because we find out more about certain characters and also certain relationships develop. This one was very, very fun. I highly recommend the Mortal Instruments series, which is about a girl named Clary who goes to a nightclub and she sees this group of people killing someone, but no one else can actually see that event unfold. And then she's launched into the world of the Shadow Hunters. I'm sure y'all know what the Mortal Instruments is about. I'm sure you've read it or at least know the synopsis. The next book that I want to talk about, I'm sure you've been anxiously awaiting my thoughts on, and by that I mean no one's been anxiously awaiting my thoughts on, but it is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. And this is a book that was very, very hyped up. It was most people's anticipated 2021 release for good reason. I mean, this is the 4th book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, which follows a young girl named Feyre who accidentally kills a fairy and then is taken to live in the kingdom of the Fae. So it's a fun series. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, very, very loose. And this 4th book actually follows one of Feyre's sisters, Nesta, and her potential love interest. I'm not going to spoil that for you guys though. Overall, I liked this book. I gave it a 3.5 star rating. But I am upset that I spent so much money on it. I really should have just gotten it from the library. I just thought that I would love this so much more than I actually did because I'm a big fan of Nesta. I think that she's such a strong and interesting character because she's sort of just like, I hate everyone in the world. Like, everyone sucks. I'm the only one who understands anything that's going on, and she's kind of rude to most people. And so I definitely understand why people don't like Nesta, but I really liked her character and I liked seeing her grow, and I was really excited to read about her growth in A Court of Silver Flames, which was great. I think that the growth of Nesta's character was my favorite part of this book. However, this book, as you can see, it's very, very long and it's kind of difficult to hold for an extended period of time. My wrist might break. So much of this book was not necessary. I was struggling through this book and it took me 2 months to read because I bought this book probably within a week of its release and I had been reading it ever since, and I just didn't finish it until about mid-April. So I liked Nesta's story, I liked her growth, but the pacing of this was really, really off for me. The beginning dragged and then the ending I felt came way too quickly, and I don't think it was foreshadowed well at all. I mean, I know people will probably disagree with me. So I liked the end and how exciting it was, but I wish it was more exciting throughout. So 3.5 star rating for me. It was okay, I liked it, but I probably won't reread it. The next book that I want to talk about is another part of a series, and that is Twisted Palace by Erin Watt. And this is the 3rd book in the Paper Princess series, which follows a girl named Ella who has been recently orphaned. And then she is called to live with a guy she doesn't know, basically the Royals family, because the Royals knew her father who has recently passed away, even though Ella never knew her father. So she is taken into the Royals family and drama unfolds from there because she starts having feelings for one of the stepbrothers named Reed, even though they hate each other. So it's definitely hate to love. It's definitely drama filled. This is the series conclusion, but there are 2 other books after this that follow one of the brothers. I'm interested in reading those because these books are super, super fun, but this one let me down, unfortunately. Not that I disliked it, but it was definitely my least favorite in the series. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I still really enjoyed it. I'll probably reread it, which is weird to say, like I gave a book 3 stars and I'm probably gonna reread it, but I just love Ella and Reed's dynamic so much because it's just so much fun. fun. And I love seeing how they develop from like this hate to love relationship to actually caring very deeply for one another. And I will say, don't take this book seriously, okay? Like, there are some moments that are very questionable and feel very cartoonish and outlandish, which wasn't a problem for me in the first 2 books, but it was unfortunately in Twisted Palace, so that's why this one got the lowest rating for me. I thought a lot of the characters just did things that felt very out of their character, and also I just didn't like how some of the actions that happened, even though it was very, very dramatic in the first 2 books, this one just felt like it was on a whole other level. I still really recommend this series if you're looking for a new adult romance, very fun, drama-filled time, but again, just don't take it too seriously because a lot of really questionable things happen in this series, but overall, it's a lot of fun. The next few books that I want to talk about are all part of another reading vlog. So I read 5 different books. Well, I finished 4 different books and I DNF'd one for my Reading Amazon book recommendations reading vlog, which will again be in the cards and in the description for ya. But for this video, I read Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire, which is about these children who come home from these magical worlds that are perfectly crafted from them and are at this orphanage. And at this orphanage, something happens. This book is very, very short, so I don't want to give away like what the main event is, but it is a mystery sort of YA fantasy moment. It was fine. I feel like this book should have been for me based off the synopsis because it had a mystery, it had a boarding school, it had magic, it was YA fantasy. All of these things should have ideally led to my perfect book, but it was just not it for me. I don't know what it was, but the execution just felt a little bit flat for me. I really don't have much to say about this, but I did give it 2 stars. It was whatever. I won't be continuing on with the series. The second book that I read for that reading vlog was The Foxhole Court, which follows a boy named Neil who goes to college to play Exie for the Foxes, and Exie is this sort of made-up sport that reminds me of lacrosse and hockey. And at this college, he encounters the weirdest found family ever. There's a mafia element, there's knives. There's not a whole lot of plot, but honestly, I loved it. These characters felt so tangible to me. I wanted to reach out and hug them and be a part of their weird stabby found family. And I just loved getting to know Neil. I feel like he went through so much development, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next 2 books. I'm so excited to continue this series because apparently the first book is like the worst, but I loved it, gave it 5 stars. It was amazing. And I don't necessarily recommend this book to everyone, but I think that if you're looking for drama, if you're looking for a very bizarre found family, if you like a college sports setting, this one might be right up your alley. It is marketed as new adult romance, but I will let you know, there's absolutely no romance in this first book. I couldn't even tell you who the main character ends up with besides who I am hoping he ends up with. Honestly, loved it. 5 stars. What do you want me to say? Also for that reading vlog, I read To Kill a Kingdom, which I also gave 5 stars. I absolutely loved this book. This is a YA fantasy standalone Little Mermaid retelling, and it was amazing. It has the trope of I was sent here to kill you, but it's twice over, okay? Because the main guy is trying to kill the main girl, but the main girl is also trying to kill the main guy, and I loved it for that. The banter between the 2 main characters was absolutely amazing, so much fun. This is another one that I wouldn't say to take too seriously. Like, I don't think it has any super big flaws, but some things in this book did feel a little bit convenient to me. However, that really didn't bother me because of just how much fun I was having. So highly recommend this if you're looking for a easy breezy YA fantasy romance time and you like the hate to love trope. The last book that I completed for that reading vlog was Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe, and I gave this one 4 stars. This is a historical fiction novel set in the 1950s, I believe. Yeah, 1950s during the Red Scare, and you're following a main character named Lily, who is a Chinese American. She's dealing with a lot of things, not only because she's a Chinese American during the 1950s, but also because she starts to have feelings for a girl. So you're following her falling in love for the first time, and also her family dynamics, and just really finding out who she is. And I thought that it was so cinematic because there's this location called the Telegraph Club. It's basically like a lesbian bar, and it's so fun to to read about, because you're really seeing Lily just fall in love with the Telegraph Club and really get to know these people there, and also fall in love with her love interest Cap. And it was so stunning. I will say that the beginning of the book was more interesting than the very end. In the middle, I feel like it kind of dragged at some parts, but I was so invested right off the bat, and I didn't think that I would be, because I don't typically pick up historical fiction. I did want a little bit more from this book because, again, it dragged a little bit, and I wanted just a few more character moments between Lily and Cap, because this is kind of marketed as a historical fiction romance, and yes, there's romance, and yes, there is talks about communism and how Lily's family deals with that, but based off the synopsis of the book, I thought that we would have gone more in depth with those things, and we really didn't. I just wanted a little bit more explanation on that, or I just wish that the book would have been marketed as Lily discovering herself and Lily really finding her identity, because I believe that's more of what this book is about, with those elements thrown in there. But highly recommend this if you're looking for a historical fiction book. I just really enjoyed my time with this. Moving on to some books that I read for my first weekly reading vlog, which will again be in the cards and the description. These are just like weekly vlogs that aren't themed. So I've done reading vlogs before. It's only my first ever reading vlog. The first book that I read for that video was A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, and this is the second book in the Ember in the Ashes series. And the Ember in the Ashes series follows a girl named Leia and a boy named Elias, who live in this YA fantasy Roman inspired setting. And basically Leia's brother is taken by the resistance, and so she infiltrates the academy that Elias is at to try and get more information about her brother's whereabouts. And I really enjoyed An Ember in the Ashes, but unfortunately I didn't really care for Torch Against the Night. I gave this one a 3-star rating, which is still good. I still actually did try to continue and read Reaper of the Gates, but I unfortunately did DNF that in my second weekly reading vlog, because I just didn't find myself invested in the characters and their storyline. I didn't really know where the plot was going, because I felt like it was a little bit all over the place. Leia and Elias I was really rooting for in the first book, but I never really wanted a romance between them, and that sort of seemed to be what was happening here. I thought there was a really cool scene that happened in this book, but I also did predict like exactly what was going to happen in the end, which is fine. Like, the book can be predictable, but I was just really hoping that this book would wow me, and it unfortunately did not. And I only really cared about Helene, who is the third main character in this book, so you have 3 different points of views. You have Elias, and Helene. Unfortunately, as much as I loved Helene and I really felt sympathy for her, I just didn't care enough about her character arc to continue the series after DNFing Reaper of the Gates, which is the third book in the series. I still recommend it if you're maybe newer to YA fantasy. I think that it definitely has some merit, and I still think that it's a good recommendation, but this series is just one that I didn't find myself caring about, and I didn't want to read 3-star books. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Torch Against the Night. I'm rambling now. For that same weekly reading vlog, I did read The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell, and this is a YA historical fantasy following Esta and Hart. And Esta is a trained thief. She currently lives in the present day, and she's been trained by her professor to go back in time to be able to steal magical artifacts. And so she has to go back in time to steal a very particular magical artifact called the Book. The Book disappeared in 1902 New York after a heist mission went wrong, and so she's going back in time to go on that heist mission with this cast of characters to try and steal the Book, and so magic can be restored in the present timeline. And it's really cool and also atmospheric. I think what I love most about historical fantasy or historical books is just how cinematic it feels, because I think it's so cool to see a place that you know so well, but in a different setting and in a different time period. And so 1902 New York is so atmospheric and wonderful, and I love the description that Lisa Maxwell gives for that time period. And I also just love Esta. She's such a strong character. She's not like other girls, but she's not like other girls in like an annoying way. Like, I think she really shows that she's super cool and passionate about what she does by her actions. She's not telling people she's unique or different, but she's responding to situations in a way that you're like, yes girl, go off, like period queen. This is a reread, I don't know if I said that, but this is one of my favorite YA fantasy series of all time, and I cannot wait to continue my reread of the series with The Devil's Thief, which is my current read. So very excited that the third book in this series came out, and I highly recommend this to anyone who is looking for a YA historical fantasy or just a fun YA fantasy in general. The pining in this book, guys, is so incredibly good. Esta and Hart's dynamic is fantastic because there's so much romantic tension and there's so much that happens but that doesn't happen, and I don't know how to explain it. But just go read this. If you like a good mutual pining situation where they kind of hate each other, but they don't hate each other, they just say they hate each other, read The Last Magician, y'all. It's so good. The last book that I read in that weekly reading vlog was Crave by Tracy Wolf. Guys, Crave was a treat, okay? So in Crave, this is another YA fantasy that follows a girl named Grace whose parents recently died in a car accident. So she goes to live at this boarding school in Alaska that her uncle, I believe, is the headmaster of, and so she lives with her cousin, and then she also meets this mysterious boy named Jackson who apparently hates everyone, and there's a little bit of a romance between Jackson and Grace. So it uses the trope, I hate everyone but you, which is why I wanted to read it so stinking bad, because that's one of my favorite tropes. But I just didn't care for this very much. I think that the plot was actually really enticing towards the end. The first half of the book took so much time to get into, but the very end of the book genuinely shocked me. Like, I was flabbergasted at all the things that happened. So I think it's fun for what it is, but it also does use a lot of weird teen slang that I feel like teens don't use. It was fun. I probably won't continue on with this series, but I do recommend it if you like that trope and you are a YA reader, but you're also looking for maybe like a younger YA fantasy book. Now, moving on to my second weekly reading vlog that I posted, which again will be in the cards and in the description, I read Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne, the author of The Hating Game. I gave this book 5 stars. This is a contender for one of my favorite romances of all time. It was so good. So this follows a woman named Ruthie who works at a retirement home, and she's very uptight, tidy. She doesn't really like going out and doing things. She has a routine way of living, and she meets this guy named Teddy under very bad circumstances. They have a very bad first impression of each other, but imagine Ruthie's distraught when Teddy actually becomes her coworker and lives in the apartment next to her at the retirement home. It's so cute. I love the setting of the retirement home. There's a really cute thing with turtles. I thought Teddy was such an expertly crafted character, and I just wanted to hug him like he was a literal teddy bear. And I loved Ruthie. This book was funny. It had amazing side characters and a very, very, very cute side romance that I was rooting for the entire time. And I just loved this book. It was so wholesome, so cute. I was sobbing by the end because I just love these characters so much that I felt so connected to them. Like, I felt like I was at this retirement home. I felt like I was a part of the crew, and just seeing their romance unfold before me and blossom was just so adorable. So if you're looking for a good beach read, a good summer romance recommendation, I highly recommend Second First Impressions because it is so gosh darn cute. The second book that I read in that weekly reading vlog was Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller, and this is another YA fantasy. Who's surprised? That's just my brand at this point. Daughter of the Pirate King follows a girl named Alosa who goes to infiltrate another pirate ship because she's the daughter of the Pirate King, and he sends her on this mission to steal a map from the said ship. So she goes willingly as a prisoner, but the guys on the ship don't know she's going willingly as a prisoner. So she's sent on this secret mission where she's kind of acting like a double agent to kind of get this map. Of course, there's a hot pirate guy, and of course, she's gonna start to develop feelings for him, and he's gonna start to develop feelings for her. It definitely has hate to love. I wouldn't say it's like absolute hatred, but they're definitely enemies to lovers because they're not on the same side at all. Daughter of the Pirate King was really fun, and it didn't really blow my expectations out of the water, but I didn't really have any expectations for it, if that makes sense. I said out of the water, that's funny because, you know, they're on a pirate ship. The main problem with this book for me was that something happens in the middle of this book that could have easily been alluded to that just wasn't, and I was like, well, why didn't we just foreshadow this? Like, this book would have felt so much more seamless if we had just introduced this plot point earlier. That's really my only critique with this though. I was just looking for a fun time with pirates and enemies to lover and good banter, and that's exactly what I got with this one. Following up Daughter of the Pirate King, I did actually read the sequel because it is a duology, which is A Daughter of the Siren Queen, and I enjoyed this one slightly less than Daughter of the Pirate King. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5-star rating, and I'm not going to go into what this book is about because obviously it's the sequel, but it follows the same characters that the first book does, and the reason why I didn't enjoy this one as much is I feel like it wasn't as romance focused as the first one was. There was a plot in the first book, but there was more so a plot in this book, which I commend Trisha Levenseller for. However, I didn't go into this book for the plot. I was going in for the romance, and that's what I expected fully with this book because that's what we were given in the first one. So I feel like it was a very sudden tone shift, and we were all of a sudden like, okay, we're getting a plot now. And also the main character was definitely more so like, I'm not like other girls in this book, which wasn't insufferable, but it did annoy me a little bit more in this book than it did in the first one. I think if you like plot over romance, this is definitely going to be a great recommendation for you because it has both flavors, it has both elements to it. This one just wasn't as strong for me as Daughter of the Pirate King, but overall it's a really fun duology and I highly recommend it. I did actually read one more book in the month of April, which is A Study in Charlotte, but I'm going to be holding my thoughts off on this because this was technically on my May TBR, but this will be coming in a video very, very soon for you to hear all my thoughts on. So yeah, those are all the books that I read in April. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed, found some new books to read. Let me know if any of these books sound enticing to you in the comment section, and also let me know what your favorite book of April was. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today. I really, really do appreciate it. All my social media handles are linked down below for you to go check out if you would like to go follow me on other platforms. I also have ways that you can support my channel, so don't forget to like this video if you liked it. That's one way that really supports my channel, and also subscribe down below for more book related content. And yeah, without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye y'all!